Aloha, awesome people, and welcome back to kind of a late Pokemon Sun and Moon discussion podcast video, but I thought I might get this out now before the next lot of news comes out, and I go, damn it, I'm late once again. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So the first topic I'm going to cover for the discussion podcast is kind of a good thing, and at the same time I have to give a bit of a negative to it. And that is in regards to our villainous team, which is going to be by the name of Team Skull. Now, my only negative towards this is, why, Game Freak, seriously, why did you have to go and spoil the leader for Team Skull? From what I'm gathering, they're kind of making out that he is the leader of Team Skull, and that is Guzma. That is my only criticism towards these type of reveals. They've gone ahead and revealed something that I actually wanted to discover for myself, so god damn it. The surprise factor is gone now, god damn it. But that's my only negative. On to the positives. Team Skull in general has to be probably one of the best first impressions I have had for a villain team for a while now. There is a reason why that Mirror B from Pokemon Colosseum and maybe Gale of Darkness didn't quite like him in Gale of Darkness because of the whole 70s disco thing going. But in Pokemon Colosseum, there is a reason why Mirror B always pops us up as an example of what a team leader or team villain should go for in regards to like first impression appeals. I mean, heck, he's got the funky groove going on, he's memorable, he's got the memorable music going. His Pokemon actually represent what Mirror B goes for as well, with the dancey Ludicolo, sorry. And yeah, like, that's a villain that will always be in my head regardless of how long I play Pokemon. And as I said, is an example of what they should be going for in regards to villains. Team Skull actually goes along those lines. They're supposed to represent like hip-hoppy rappers in a way. I don't really know what they're going for there. It kind of looks, as I said, hip-hoppy rappy in a way. They've got the whole movement going, the whole yo, 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 what you doing, punk, with you. Yeah, I completely blew that one. I was going for something. I was going like, yo, 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 homeboy, what you doing, punk? You invading on me turf. Yeah, I'm not going to do that again. But yeah, that's what they're kind of going for, and their Pokemon kind of represent that as well, with the usual stereotypical dark type, poison types, and going along those lines, which we've seen quite a lot with previous villains. And I'm kind of hoping these guys actually pull through, because one of the major criticisms I had for Pokemon X and Y with Team Flare was they had potential, but unfortunately Game Freak went and got a bit of every previous villain. They had Team Rocket in there, they had Team Aqua and Team Magma in regards to like wanting to destroy the world. They had Team Plasma in regards to like trying to free Pokemon, I do believe, at one point. And I think they may have had a bit of Team Galacta in there. We may as well say that because they've had a bit of everything in there. And then just put them underneath a paper press and made them 2D. It was so flat, and that's one of my major criticisms for Pokemon X and Y was their villains. They were so 2D, there was nothing memorable about them, except maybe their pose, their OST, and Lysander's design and his battle theme. That's about my only positives towards Team Flare. Other than that, they're just flat, boring, unmemorable. Forgettable is actually the word I was looking for there. Whereas if you look back on Giovanni from Generation 1, he had the whole surprise factor that he was a gym leader as well as the leader of Team Rocket, plus the extra backstory in Heart Gold Soul Silver that Silver from Generation 2 was actually his son. You had Team Magma, Team Aqua, they were the very first to go through and try and, I guess, destroy the land or destroy the seas or whatever, some type of catastrophic measures to try and get their goal. Team Galactic. Freak, I always get those two mixed up. Anyways, 4th generation's villains are actually a bit of a blur to me because I haven't played 4th generation for so long. I only played them once through and then I never played through again. And that's why it's a bit of a blur, so I apologise for that one. 5th generation, they were Team Plasma were going for Pokemon unification, making them free in some way. And at the same time, great OST. I have always praised 5th generation for the OST. And at the same time, as I have to mention as well, Getsus as well. When you go to like villains that I think back to in regards to like being 3-dimensional and really out there, Getsus really does it. Even though like my only thing that I can really remember from 5th generation is Getsus, because I only played the original Black and White. Yet the OST to back him up is like this villain to be feared. He was actually a challenge, and then in Black and White 2 apparently he comes back in absolutely insane madman. Even his theme backs it up too, with how erratic it is, how fast-paced it is. It reflects on how insane he has gone in Black and White 2. So I'm really hoping, when we forget about Team Flare, that Team Skull has that type of impression, somewhat similar to how Getsus or Mirror B has actually influenced a lot of players, or given that impression to players over the generations. So yes, please Team Skull, please be 3-dimensional, and please don't be forgettable like Team Flare. That's my only hopes in regards to Team Skull. Other than that, they're looking pretty interesting. But anyways, let's go in for a bit of information for them, because I have dribbled on a little bit about my disliking towards Team Flare, but how I do have major hopes for Team Skull. Anyways, Guzma is shown to have an Ariados on him. And at the same time, we know a little bit about him as well. He appears to know Professor Kukui. So in regards to that, we could be looking back to 6th generation, unfortunately, where Lysander was previously... I can't think of his name at this point in time, but he was the Professor's assistant at one point in time, where they were working together at one point in time. So they had a colleague relationship there. So I'm kind of hoping with Guzma, it's kind of like a really unique relationship, whether it be like it's a family member, they were assistants at one time, or they were like a working relationship. Something like that. It's usually something along those lines. But hey, it'd be nice to see something a little bit different, like evil twin or something. God, that'd be mind-blowing. One brother's a twin, and one brother's professor, the good guy, and the other one's like an evil leader. And my phone went off. That is awesome. At the same time as well, we do know that Guzma was unable to become a trial captain. So at one stage he was trying to be a trial captain, and unfortunately failed that. Other than that, we know absolutely nothing about him. So let's move on to the next part of Team Skull, and that is the, I guess, admin? I guess that's what they're referring to her as. Admin Plurima, which I think that's how you pronounce her name, who is the admin of Team Skull. She's considered, from what I'm gathering from the trailer, she's considered as the big sister of the team, aka admin. And she has a Golbat in an Ultra Ball. I had to put out that point, Ultra Ball, shown in the trailer. Now, the reason why I pointed out the Ultra Ball, it's a really small detail, but I had to point it out because no one else in the Pokemon games, as far as I'm aware or I can remember, have used anything outside of a Pokeball. So that's really cool. That could be a chance that other NPCs in the game could be using Pokeballs other than Pokeballs. How cool is that? So maybe we might get Team Skull members with like Dusk Balls or something, because that would definitely reflect on like how the team runs and all that. Maybe you could get some like Quick Balls, or maybe some Master Balls. That'd be really cool. So yeah, we actually see an NPC outside the Pokeball, and yes, she does have a Golbat. And then we have like the actual runs themselves. They actually look really cool, and as I said, they're going for the hip hop with the baggy pants, not long baggy pants, half leg baggy pants, and then like the tank tops, and you got like the female punks with the very short shorts, and then again the whole tank top going as well. They got the bandanas around their face, and I know it's a bandana on their head from what I can tell. But yeah, definitely going for the whole hip-hoppy, rappy aesthetic in their costumes as well. Other than that, that's kind of all that I think I want to touch on Team Skull. If you didn't get my final impression, was definitely looking forward to see how Team Skull goes in regards to how they play out in the game, what their actual overall goal is. I'm actually really excited to see how that's going to go. And my only disappointment is, why did they spoil who the leader was? Their whole surprise factor is gone. God damn it. Hopefully they don't reveal too much else that is going to be like I don't know, like some type of surprise factor. But yeah, as I said, I'm slightly disappointed that they revealed that. So other than that, there's not really too much else I need to go on about any other things that we need to know about the actual game itself. So all that's left to really cover about is the new Pokemon that we've been introduced to, and one other minor thing that came out quite recently, but that's kind of like going over a previous topic that I've talked about in the podcast, but we'll get to it, as I said, at the end of the video. Alright, so let's go through and talk about our new Pokemon. So I'll leave the Alolan Pokemon last, which means our very first Pokemon to cover is quite an interesting Pokemon, actually. The very first one I'm going to talk about is Wishy-Washy. Seriously? So far, Sun and Moon had some of like the most interesting Pokemon names so far, and my English is now starting to fail me, goddammit. But yeah, Wishy-Washy. 10 out of 10 name there, that is so cool. But at the same time, I think this is going to be competing with Charjabug and a few other Pokemon for like #1 spot as so far for Sun and Moon Pokemon reveals. So Wishy-Washy is a water-type Pokemon. It is known as a small fry Pokemon with the ability Schooling, which again has to be probably probably will be amongst my top 10 favorite abilities, because this is so unique in a way. We've had abilities in the past have changed the form of Pokemon or the way that they look, but nothing as advanced as what Schooling does. So what Schooling does is, under certain conditions, Schooling transforms Wishy-Washy between its solo form and its school form. So Schooling appears to transform Wishy-Washy from its solo form to its school form when it's sent into battle and has reached a certain level. Key emphasis on certain level. Abilities in the past, as I said, have allowed Pokemon to change their form, but not under a certain level. So there actually is some type of criteria in order to activate this ability. So if it's at a low level, it won't do it. So after that certain level, you'll be able to use this ability. So major props there for actually changing some sort of mechanics on the ability to make it, as I said, quite unique from previous abilities. Anyways, continuing on. It appears to undo this transformation, turning school form Wishy-Washy into its solo form, after Wishy-Washy receives a certain amount of damage. So somewhat similar to previous abilities there as well. If you take so much damage, you'll just undo itself. That's kind of going into like Zen mode Darmanitan, where it needs to be at a certain amount of health. Once it goes back over that, I think it's a quarter health to do Zen mode, or half health, can't remember. Once it goes over that said HP, it will go back to its normal form. I think the Shields Down ability on the minor Pokemon, which was being introduced as well for Sun and Moon, is the same thing. Once it's gone underneath half, it'll go into its other form, and then it'll go into like its Meteor form. I can't remember the forms at the top of my head, unfortunately. But it's very similar to that. However, in this thing, it won't go back once it's taken X amount of damage, unfortunately. So it'll be definitely known as a bit more of a, probably a sweeping type Pokemon, I'd say. And for those who want to know like what the school form actually looks like, seriously, it looks so cool. It's definitely also relating back to real world fish as well. So for those who've like gone out fishing and all that, should know that a lot of fish swim in schools, or just a large group of fish. So the school form Wishy-Washy is basically just a whole bunch of Wishy-Washy in their solar form, all swimming together to make one larger fish, which is so cool. So I'd imagine Wishy-Washy is probably based on maybe salmon, I think. I know salmon definitely swim in a huge school of fish. There are many fish that do swim in like schools, but nothing major like salmon. If you look at like Finding Nemo, for example, right near the end of the movie, there's a bit where Nemo gets caught in a fishing net, and all those fish that he's been caught in is actually, I'm pretty sure it's salmon. So that's what I said, best guess there would be salmon. Other than that, besides me being really excited for this Pokemon, there is actually nothing else I can really talk about in regards to this particular Pokemon. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to go about in regards to like stats or something, or if this Pokemon may get an evolution or pre-evolution. It's still up in like the air if it's going to have anything else, or in regards to like its stats and all that. So let's move on to the next Pokemon, which is going to be Sandygast. Now this Pokemon was revealed in Korokoro quite some time ago, but only just had its English name and its ability released only recently. And it's a Ghost Ground type Pokemon, and it's known as a Sand Heat Pokemon with the ability Water Compaction, which has actually made me really excited, and it really does motivate me to want to use this Pokemon when Sun and Moon comes out. Mainly because Water Compaction is going to be an extremely useful move on Sandstorm teams, and as people who follow my Wi-Fi Wednesday would know, I've been going through like Sun teams, Rain teams, Sandstorm teams, trying to avoid Hail because I hate Hail with a passion. All those type of themed teams in a way. But anyways, so Water Compaction, when hit by a Water type move, its defense raises by 2 stages. Now, I'm more interested in Sandygast rather than its evolution, which is Palosand. I apologize if I said that one incorrectly, which again is a Ghost Ground Pokemon, and it's known as the Sandcastle Pokemon, which is definitely fitting because it's like a huge sandcastle, and I can hear people going on saying, oh my god, it's another Klefki, it's another Vanillux, it's another name X Pokemon that looks like a really lazy design or based on something that may not be a Pokemon. That whole argument may come back again. But no, it's, as I said, it's going to be interesting because of its ability. And at the same time, since it is a ghost type Pokemon, a lot of ghost type Pokemon do revolve around the whole idea that something that we're familiar with in real life could actually be possessed and try and kill us. So really, I don't blame them for putting a sandcastle for being like a possessed ghost type that could like put us in sinking sand and try and smother us in sand. Because we build, like, you see a lot of sandcastles on the beach. Who knows, that sandcastle could very well be the last thing that you see. But going back on the topic that I was talking about, Sandygast, with Water Compaction, and hopefully it's going to be having some type of average or decent special defense you can run, which means you could go for an Everlight, run max special defense, max health, have it go into a Sandstorm team, which means it'll be immune to Sandstorm and everything, and have it like swap into like a water type Pokemon or something and raise its defense by +2. I think this is something that can happen multiple times. So if it gets hit by something like Water Shuriken, which I don't think Froakie learns, so that might be a bad example, but something that hits multiple times and is a water type move would definitely help the Sandygast. So to get the Water Compaction going every time, Everlight would give it a bit of bulk as well, and then go for something like Rest or Pain Split. I know a lot of ghost type Pokemon learn Pain Split, which means you recover health back, and then it'll make it like a really tanky Pokemon on both defensive and special defensive side, given that it has decent special defense, and then you just go from there. So it'd be really interesting to try and work in like LC or P or NU, depending on where Sandygast ends up. Same deal with Palosand, but without the Everlight, so you could run a Salt Vest with Palosand, but you just wouldn't be able to use Recover or anything like that, unless they put in like a healing ghost type move, similar to like Giga Drain or Horn Leech or moves like that. If they can put on some type of move like that with Palosand, that'll be very interesting type of strategy going on there. I mean, it could still work even without doing any special defense. You just have to make sure that you can live the water type move. But other than that, there's like not really much else I could really say about Palosand and Sandygast. Overall, definitely am really excited to try and use these Pokemon in a strategy once Sun and Moon comes out. That's, again, something similar wishy-washy as well. Want to use them because they sound really interesting competitively, and at the same time they're quite appealing design-wise as well, regardless of what other people say. So let's move on to another competitively appealing Pokemon, which is a name that's probably going to take me a while to learn to say, and that's Pukumuki. Pukumuki. That sounds like something out of an anime or something, like a Japanese anime without the subtitles going. So I honestly thought this wasn't the translated version of the name because, as I said, it doesn't look like an English type of name. But anyways, it's a sea cucumber Pokemon, and it's a water type Pokemon. Water type only, so pure water type with the ability in its out. Now, this one's going to be an interesting one because it's a sea cucumber Pokemon, so it could go defensive. I'm trying to think what a sea cucumber is. That's interesting. Okay. If this Pokemon is extremely frail, this is going to be really awesome. It's going to be one of those sack it Pokemon and let it die for its ability. For those who don't know, in and out is very similar to how Aftermath works, but instead of doing a fixed amount of damage, it'll actually deal damage to the opponent equal to the amount of HP it had before being last hitted. So for example, if it was at max health, and let's go by the average HP, which is like 300 at level 100, if it's one hit KO with 300 health, it means the opponent will take 300 damage. Most of the time that would come close to killing a Pokemon, and as I said, I'm going by just average here, so if you went max health or something, for a water type, I'd say about 350, 380 HP there. As I said, really just depending on their stats there, it would mean it'll do that amount of damage. It was one hit KO. Or you could run Focus Sash on this thing, do its max health, subtract 1 of course, and then deal that to your opponent, and then do something after that. I'm not sure how this is going to... Oh, sorry, can't run Focus Sash because you need to die. So yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting Pokemon. Or you could do it as a Pokemon, as like, swap it in, make it do its last damage, and knock off a Pokemon Sturdy or something, or have it so it's kind of like a revenge kill in a way, a suicidal revenge kill. I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how people run it. Are they going to run it as like just a suicide scrap at Pokemon to knock out a Pokemon? Make it like very lackluster defense EVs and IVs, and lackluster special defense IVs, EVs, as top of lackluster HP, IVs and EVs, so it goes down really easy. I mean, heck, you can even run it in like an unbred one, just straight from the wild, just let it die. You'd have to go max HP and IVs and EVs, so you want the maximum damage. This is the thing though, because sometimes Pokemon, if they have decent amount of health, regardless of their defense or special defense, they can still live moves thanks to their impressive health. I.e. Blissey and Chansey, for example, they may have really lackluster, not really lackluster, extremely lackluster defense. They can still live a neutral, non-stab physical type move, which is interesting and at the same time quite annoying. Please nerf that, Game Freak. But anyways, it's really interesting to see how people will go about using this Pokemon, if it will be just like a Pokemon that no one will use because of its stats or its moves, or will people use it just to abuse the in its out ability, even though it'll be like using Memento or Explosion, anything along those lines. So that's all I can really comment in regards to this Pokemon. I'm actually really interested to see how it will play out just in battle alone. Anyways, let's move on to the next Pokemon. And unfortunately, there's not going to be a lot I'm going to be able to say about this Pokemon because there's really nothing new about it. And that's Morlai. Mollo? Anyways, it's the illuminating Pokemon. It's Grass Fairy type. So we got the big poison type weakness going on there. Weak to fire. It's going to be weak to bug, I do believe. Weak to flying. So I'm looking at it thinking this is definitely going to get an evolution of some sort. It's just getting that vibe that it's going to evolve. Anyways, it's got the ability Illuminate and Effect Spore. And that's absolutely everything we know about it. And when I was looking at the trailer, it looks like Spore did get a bit of an upgrade, or it's got a new signature move very similar to how Amoonguss and Fungus have the Rage Powder ability, or Powder I think went to Voliberon. Anyways, it was like a signature bug type move that went to only one evolution. I know Rage Powder is signature to Amoonguss and Fungus, so maybe Mollo has some type of signature Spore move or something, since it does look like something like that. And at the same time, it's also going to be that parasite feel to it too, something similar to how Paras and Parasect have these parasitic mushrooms on their back. Maybe it's just these Mullo on their back and being the parasites instead. Maybe that's the answer to what type of parasite is on Paras and Parasect. I don't know, it's just something to think about. I just threw it in there as like something that I'm improvising on at the moment. But yeah, that's really all we know about this particular Pokemon in the meantime. So we're up to our second last Pokemon, and a Pokemon that is actually pretty interesting, which is Tortonator. Oh, I know what you did there, Game Freak. Tortonator the Terminator. Move aside, Torkoal, we've got a brand new fire turtle on the way who just happens to be a fire dragon type. I'm sorry, Charizard X version, there is another fire dragon in the house as well. Now, this Pokemon may not be interesting on the surface, but it does come with a very signature move, and that is by the name of Shell Trap, which will cause the opponent to get hit by an explosion of damage if it hits Tortonator on the same turn. So when it puts up that move, I'd say it'd have like quite high priority. The opponent, if it hits it physically, will then take damage. So it's kind of similar to the whole Iron Barb's ability, or similar to how Bide works, Counter works, except with a bit of priority, I'd say, which is quite interesting to see how that people run that on a bulky set most likely. As I said, when I looked at it, I just thought of Torkoal for some odd reason, so it might be slow with quite powerful special attack or physical attack or something, and maybe high in defense since it is known as the Flame Turtle Pokemon. Sorry, the Blast Turtle Pokemon, my bad. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how people will utilize the Shell Lock ability and try and like set up, not Shell Lock, why did I say Shell Lock? Shell Trap. See if they'll try and lure a physical type user or choice banded user into attacking it and then getting damage dealt back to them. As I said, working very similar to Counter there actually, except not double damage, just deals damage back to them. And its ability was Shell Armor. Again, no crits can be done to that Pokemon, and that's all we know for that Pokemon for now. Which leads us on to the last Pokemon that has been revealed, and that was in the last trailer for the Sun and Moon trailers in regards to Blair. Definitely screwed that over. Back to point. Crabrawler is the last one that we've been revealed. It was in the same trailer, I think, where we had Team Skull on it. But anyways, it's the boxing Pokemon and is a fighting type only. So yeah, ignore the whole stereotype that a crab is a water type Pokemon thanks to Kingler, Crawdont, and all those other crab Pokemon. We now have just a pure fighting type crab with the abilities Hyper Cutter or Iron Fist. Yeah, I'm kind of scared of Pokemon with Iron Fist because that is definitely quite a powerful ability when combined with like Bullet Punch or Mach Punch, Drain Punch. Any of those punching moves, they can be quite scary. So at this point in time, that's all we really know about Crabrawler, but yeah, I'm interested to see how this Pokemon goes in regards to stats. If this Pokemon will be quite dominant in the metagame, or will it be just a, fun for the first couple of months and then just dies off a little bit. So yeah, that's all with the new Pokemon that's been revealed to us, which leaves us now with the Alolan region Pokemon that was revealed. Now, before I go with the Alolan region Pokemon, I do want to kind of go back to a previous podcast and talk about something that I was supposed to talk about, but I never did. And that is how the Alolan region's evolutions or Pokemon are going to work. Now, of course, this won't appeal to a lot of the Alolan regions because their first stage Pokemon will be Alolan. This kind of aims towards Executor and a few others that I'm going to mention in this podcast. So I'm going to be assuming and speculating that the Alolan evolutions will work based on location. So for example, if you evolve an Execute in a tropical region, you will get the Alolan region Executor. And then if we move on to one of our new Alolan regions, we have the Raichu. And now we got to jump back to the E3 Treehouse where... Sorry, I gotta do a shameless plug here, but I do believe back in the E3 Treehouse podcast, I kind of mentioned that there's a chance that the Pichu line, maybe Pichu or Pikachu or even Raichu, may have actually got a different form, hence why the rival might be using it. Quick interruption to the podcast, but the following audio clip that you're about to hear is from the Pokemon Sun and Moon podcast that I did back on June 16th, 2016 in regards to the E3 presentation, which was a discussion / speculation and bit of a reanalysis of what was going on at E3 Treehouse. Now, the audio clip, I did actually reference Pikachu having the form, so I was slightly right, just one evolution short of the Raichu. But regardless, this was the early thoughts that I had back in June, so enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast. And the other thing I was thinking of, he's got a Pichu, which means Pikachu may play a bit of an important role in this game as well. I mean, one thing that's coming to mind is it'll evolve into a Pikachu, and then Pikachu's going to have some forms as well. I mean, in Oris we did see cosplay Pikachu, so he could get a Pikachu that could represent a surfing Pikachu, for example. I mean, Hawaii's known to some good waves, so we could get surfing Pikachu, which again was actually seen back in the season 1 of the Pokemon anime. I don't know if people actually remember that particular episode, but there was a Pikachu that could feel the waves in the ocean and could tell when a really big wave was coming in, and that's when the sparks would fly because it was one with the ocean. So that could be a thing as well, like his Pichu could evolve into a Pikachu with some story relevance to it, or some type of new form introduced in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Other than that, I can't think of any other reason why I'd have a Pichu. So does that mean that Hal could be using an Alolan region Raichu against you, regardless of what starter Pokemon you use? Ooh, that might be a possibility. Sorry, I had to do that shameless plug there, but a lot of people actually kind of like shot down my argument for that one. Had to bring it up. Anyways, we have the Alolan region Raichu, and oh boy, this one looks pretty interesting competitively wise too. It is definitely interesting in design as well. It's kind of like a homage back to the surfing Pikachu, which has been brought up so many times. We had the surfing Pikachu back in Pokemon Yellow, where if you went to Pokemon Stadium, completed round 2, I do believe, with Scumshoe in your party, won it, you would get the surfing Pikachu on Pokemon Yellow. I do believe surfing Pikachu came around in Generation 2 in a Japanese event. Generation 3 we had the surfing Pichu thanks to the Pokemon Box. Generation 4 we had surfing Pikachu from Battle Revolution. Generation 5 we had surfing and flying Pikachu. And Generation 6 we've only recently had the surfing and flying Pikachu as an event. So definitely referencing them very hard there. Although I think surfing Raichu may actually be doing a homage back to a little mistake they did in Generation 1, where Lieutenant Surge had a surfing Raichu. Now, as far as I'm aware, that's actually illegal since you can't evolve the Pikachu that you have on you in Pokemon Yellow unless you trade it to another game. Now, I'm not sure if the whole Pokemon Stadium 2 thing only works on the Pikachu that you have on you in Pokemon Yellow, or if it works on any traded Pokemon to Pokemon Yellow, which means you can evolve it into a Raichu. I have to kind of do personal research on that myself, since I am on the conquest to get a surfing Pikachu in Generation 1 in the Pokemon Stadium walkthrough. So yes, enough dribbling on about its inspiration of design. Let's actually talk about its type, because it does get a new type when in its Alolan region form, which is Electric Psychic. So it does open it up to a lot more weaknesses, but the main point I wanted to get at for the Alolan region Raichu was actually its ability Surge Surfer. Now, Surge Surfer is definitely going to be very handy in doubles, if for anyone who plays in double battles of VGC, and the effect goes like this. When the battlefield is under the effects of electric terrain, Surge Surfer doubles the speed of Pokemon with this ability, and cue in Tapu Koko, which its ability was when this Pokemon came onto the field. I'm pretty sure electric terrain kicks in. And that would be underneath the ability Electric Surge, which means that is going to be a scary combination. So Electric Fairy and Electric Psychic. All you'd have to do is go Magnet Rise or Air Balloon on one of the two. And avoid a Poison type Pokemon or something, avoid Dark type Pokemon, and all the other fun stuff that's super effective against either one of them, and you've got a bit of trouble. So Raichu's already pretty fast without the whole speed boosting things or anything, so if you were to do that with the Tapu Koko or any Pokemon setting up electric terrain, you'd probably just go max health, max special attack, or you could do special attack, HP, modest with Assault Vest or something, because Raichu does have nice base special defense. This is going on the assumption that the Alolan Raichu is taking stats very similar to our normal Raichu without the Alolan region form. That's what I'm going off the assumption for. If a special attack does decrease or its special defense goes down or anything like that, I just say go just pure sweeper, max health, max special attack. You could modify its speed if its speed does drop down, but electric terrain, as I said, it is a double, so it's similar to like Swift Swim, similar to Sand Rush, Chlorophyll, any of those particular moves underneath weather, whereas this one is more like a terrain move, which is interesting. So I'm definitely expecting that combo in double battles or even VGC. Doesn't have to be Tapu Koko because, as I said, 2 electric type Pokemon may not be the wisest when you got Pokemon like Landorus in the meta who can run Earthquake. I'm kind of not familiar with any other Pokemon going Earthquake spamming in VGC, but it's definitely something to think about. Other than that, this is kind of going back to the point that I was going to make. In regards to your lower region evolutions, for Raichu, I'd say anything coastal because, as I said, it's got the surfing feel to it, so maybe coastal, anywhere close to like the sea or something. So if you evolved a Pikachu there, you'd get your lower region Raichu. So that's a food for thought there. Moving on to our next Alolan region Pokemon, which is the Alolan region Meowth, who has already caught my eye and has got me thinking, is there going to be a Alolan region Persian? Please let there be a Alolan region Persian because this is bloody awesome! While I might be not fully in love with its design, the fact that it's a Dark-type Pokemon is enough to convince me to like it. As everyone knows, I'm a huge Dark-type fan, and at the same time, Stab Bite Technician is going to be quite strong. In regards to its Alolan region, it still keeps the Pickup and Technician abilities last I checked. So that means, as I said, the Bite Technician strategy still remains, which is what a lot of people run on their Persians in competitive battle at the moment. So you could run like Bite, you could run, well, I run Payday, which is funny, and you could run Icy Wind if you're doing a special attacking one. I think Hidden Power is definitely in range of that one. Oh, I can't think of the top of my head, but yeah, you can run things like that. So if there is a lower region Persian, I am definitely using it. Unfortunately though, when you're going from normal type to a dark type, it does open you up to a lot more weaknesses. Whereas normal type, your only weakness is fighting, and you are immune to ghost type Pokemon. At the same time, you can't hit ghost type Pokemon. Whereas going to a dark type, you're weak to fighting, steel, however you open it up to being weak to fairy and bug type Pokemon. Not so much the bug Pokemon that fears me, it's the fairy type Pokemon, since they are coming quite popular, especially in Sun and Moon. There has been so many fairy type Pokemon introduced, it is making the dark types shiver in their boots. So yeah, as I said, please let there be a Alolan region Persian. Even if you don't spoil it beforehand, it'd be nice to go and find out and catch one in the actual game. I am so excited for this Pokemon, it is not funny. So because it is the first stage evolution, you'll probably be able to go and catch a Alolan region Meowth and then do whatever. And when it comes to breeding, because it's already in the Alolan region form, I'd say it would hatch in a Alolan region form. Whereas if you went and bred a normal Meowth, it would hatch as a normal Meowth. I'd say that's how the Alolan regions will work. It may have took me a while to actually get to my final point, but we eventually did get there. Alright, so the last Alolan region form that we're getting is something that a lot of people knew were coming because it was teased in the trailer that one of the trial captains had a Marowak, which would make sense that... Sorry, it wasn't in the trailer, it was in the biography of the trial captain. Anyways, everyone knew this was coming, but no one knew it was going to be this badass. And oh my god, this is probably my favorite Alolan region Pokemon by far. And it's definitely up there for community favorite, and that is the Alolan region Marowak. This thing is so cool. And at the same time, it's a fire ghost type. So instead of being like a monotype, it's now got a dual type, fire and ghost. But it is so cool. I like this Pokemon a lot, so I think I'm gonna have to use this Pokemon in game, but purely because biased, because I like it. It's really cool. Instead of like using a new Pokemon that I haven't seen before to try out, gotta go for the cool looking Pokemon because sweet looking and yeah, so cool looking. Even then, like, its abilities do slightly change as well in the Alolan region form. It actually gets Curse Body instead of Rockhead, and Lightning Rod still remains on the Alolan region. So I can still swap in and take an electric type move. Be very handy on maybe your rain teams if you want something to absorb a water type move and then have something to counter grass type Pokemon if the rain is not present. Could be handy on Pokemon teams like that. Could even work on Sun Team since it is a fire type Pokemon, so I'd assume it would be getting fire type moves to use. It may even go into a special attacker because ghost type Pokemon have quite a bit of special type moves. From top of my head, Shadow Ball, Yeah, hold on. I use Shadow Ball a lot, but that's all about I use. There's like Shadow Punch, then there's like Phantom Force, which are physical. Okay, I might retract that statement. Anyways, it'd be really interesting to see how the Marowak goes in regards, like, does it gain brand new moves if Cubone doesn't get a Alolan region form, or will it still remain a physical user, and then moves like Fire Punch, which Marowak can run at times to counter Grass-type Pokemon, will eventually become stab moves, which would be quite interesting. So there's, again, something to think about. And before I end off the video, I actually forgot to mention a brand new revealed Pokemon, and that is the pre-evolution to Beware, which I actually laughed at for its name, and that is Stuffle. And unlike Beware, where I said I wasn't a huge fan of its design, it may take me a while to fall in love with this Pokemon, Stuffle's the complete opposite. It is cute! This thing's adorable! I don't think I'm going to evolve my Stuffle into a Beware unless I need it for the Pokédex. Any other time, I don't think I'm going to evolve it and just use it in LC. This thing's adorable! And same thing, again, it's the flailing Pokemon. Its type is normal fighting with the ability Fluffy or Klutz, similar to Beware's abilities as well. Alrighty, so that's everything I wanted to cover in regards to like the new Pokemon and the villains that were announced for Pokemon Sun and Moon. The last little bit I wanted to cover in the podcast, again, is kind of revising on something I've already talked about in previous podcasts, and it's going back to hyper training. Now, only recently in the last couple of days, I do believe, we've had news on the bottle caps. So we're aware that the silver bottle caps will raise a Pokemon's IVs by 1. Whereas we get the gold bottle cap, it'll raise a Pokemon's IVs to max, which is quite time-saving actually. Now, this is all good and dandy. We're still open in the air, like how we're going to be able to get the bottle caps. Is it going to be through Global Link? Is it just going to be through something like Battle Mason, where we have to go through and earn them or something? Something similar to Battle Mason at least. Or is there going to be some other way that we can obtain them in some type of numbers, or are they going to limit it in some way in the game? As I said, I would prefer it if they did it through Global Link. It would give me a reason to use my Pokémiles other than like getting rare candies for LC or the PP ups, which I need to use on getting more PP on my moves. Other than that, I have no other reason to use my Pokémiles. So if they do it through that way, I'm going to be spending a lot of bottle caps in regards to like hidden power and all that. My only thing that I'm still got a gripe with, they still haven't mentioned if it's going to be just positive in IVs, which is all fine and dandy if you're doing like hidden power and all that. It will make hidden power 100 times easier. I won't have to like pull my hair out trying to get hidden power this gen. Or is there going to be some way of using negatives? Because I did make a little tweak recently where I was doing some soft resetting for some Trick Room Pokemon. And unfortunately, I had to eventually give up on trying to get like really low speed. I had to deal with like anything between 1 and 5 in their IVs. Whereas in Sun and Moon, if they have a bottle cap to do negatives, it would mean I could go soft resetting for like HP, special attack or whatever I'm going for the Pokemon. And then I could go for like a low amount of speed or something, and then use the bottle caps to take it back to 0. Speed's about the only one you maybe want to take back to 0 unless you're going for like 31 in the IV breeding and then go to negatives back for a hidden power. That's about the only time you'd probably be using negatives. So again, as I said, more food for thought there in regards to like hyper training. So far, I'm still going along lines of this is awesome, why did they not introduce it sooner? Definitely handy for the fact that we've got the Generation 1 games on the Virtual Console being compatible with Sun and Moon as well, which means what was originally max 15 IVs will now be able to go to 31 IVs thanks to bottle caps, which will make a lot of Generation 1 Pokemon and their movesets more accessible in Generation 7. That was one of my biggest fears when they announced that, was the Generation 1 Pokemon just for gimmicks and lols, for reminiscing, but they finally made it a way that we can actually use our Generation 1 Pokemon in competitive play, especially if you're a Smogon player. Probably not so much a VGC player, because I know there's going to be like some type of rule limiting out the Generation 1 Pokemon since they are transferred. I'd say that there'd be a low and region rules placed to stop that. Otherwise, you'll be seeing Fissure Machamps everywhere. No thank you. I'll pass on that one. Thanks, unless I've got to start bringing Sturdy with me or some flying type or levitating Pokemon, which is not going to happen in a lot of cases. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have in regards to the current news of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Watch the next couple of days, because I am recording this on the 30th of August. Watch early September, there's going to be brand new Sun and Moon news, and I won't get it out till halfway through September because I'm lazy and I'm slow. I'm kind of like that person who rocks up at like midnight when the party's ending and goes, "What's up, my babes? We get to go, blah. We gonna get this party going," and everyone's like, "Nope, we're already closing down and moving on with like the next day." That's me, unfortunately, and I really butchered that there, which means I'm done with this podcast, in other words. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. I was actually hoping to make this smaller than the last podcast, but I kind of went on talking a little bit about the villains, which extended this. So because of that, let's just cut this short and go until the next Pokemon Sun and Moon news. This is Lady KrimZen saying ciao for now, but not forever. Ciao!